Welcome to this video on the Chandogya Upanishad. We're going to start out with a quote that you find on page 51 if you're following along in the Gupta, or you can use your own translation. "Put this lump of salt in water and come to me next morning," the teacher said. Then the student did so. The teacher said, "Please bring here the salt you put in water last evening." The student looked for it and did not find it, since it was dissolved. He, the teacher, said, "Take a sip of this water from this end. Tell me, how does it taste?" "Salty," said the student. "Take a sip from the other end. How is it?" "Salty," said the student. "Throw it away and then come to me," said the teacher. He, the student, did so. Then he said, "My dear, you do not see pure being, but it is indeed here. That which the entire world has as its subtle essence is itself. That is the truth. That is the self. That art thou, Shvetaketu," the teacher said. "Tat tvam asi." Thou art that. And that is this subtle divine essence that pervades all of reality. Oftentimes it's translated into English just as self, with a capital S. Alright, so when we talk about the self, we're talking about either the atman or the brahman, and we'll get to that in 1 second. Alright, so the Upanishads. The Upanishads are initiatory teachings traditionally, that is to say, you would work with a qualified guru, a spiritual teacher, who would impart these teachings. They are appended onto the Vedas. And the important idea here is the Brahman, like we've been saying, an all-pervasive primordial divinity. Now there's a god called Brahman, right? Called Brahma, right? So Brahma is the creator deity. He's normally paired with Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom. So it's Brahma Saraswati, the creating aspect of divinity. But in the Upanishads, we're not really talking about a personified deity. We're talking about this sort of generic, all-pervasive deity, divinity. So not really a person, but something that comes prior to personal deities, something that is before deities as such, right? This is the most ancient and the most subtle form of divinity. So what is this Brahman? Brahman, this is in Gupta on page 32, that from which all things are born, in which they live after being born, and into which they return upon departing. The Brahman is neither food, nor the vital breath, nor manas, which is the will or intention, nor intellectual awareness. It is bliss, ananda. That all beings arise out of bliss, continue to live in bliss, and return at the end into bliss. And that's the end of the quotation. This might remind you of the pre-Socratics back when we were talking about Heraclitus and Heraclitus' notion of the logos, right? Everything arising out of the logos and being destroyed again into the logos. Now, it's not an exactly when we make these comparisons, they're never exact, but perhaps the comparisons are an aid to understanding. Another key feature of the Upanishads is understanding the relationship between Atman and Brahman. So Atman is the soul, or the individual portion of divinity. It's described in some of the Upanishads as being smaller than the thumb and being located inside the self. So you could say maybe it's the soul. And Brahman, again, this all-pervading deity. In the Upanishads, Atman and Brahman are often used interchangeably. It doesn't really matter whether you refer to one or the other, because inside of us is the divine self. Thou art that, right? So I have another video on the Atman-Brahman relationship, so I'll try to try to link that here, and so I'm not going to spend too much time on that right now. What I do want to, one other thing from this chapter that I do want to talk about are the koshas, or the 5 sheets. You'll see a very similar idea in Buddhism. Remember that Buddhism arises out of Hinduism, so that's not accidental. So here's the theory of the 5 sheets. We could say the 5 bodies. We're starting out with the very least subtle, and then we're becoming more and more subtle as we go along. So starting out with the annamaya kosha, which is the physical body. This is literally the body made out of food. And moving on down to pranamaya kosha. So there's this prana, this all-pervasive energy that is found throughout nature. Again, referring back to the pre-Socratics, similar to the idea of pneuma, or spirit, which some of the pre-Socratics thought was an all-pervading spirit throughout the world. In Sanskrit, it's prana, this hidden divine energy. Similar to the idea of chi in Taoist philosophy and Taoist yoga. It's a hidden divine energy that's throughout our bodies. Moving on to the manamaya kosha, our thought body, our mental body. Our thoughts have really great power to shape our lives, to shape our understandings, and how we interact with the world. So when we talk about thoughts, we're trying to move them in a more sattvic direction, a more clear direction. Moving on to the vijnanamaya kosha. So the thoughts are becoming more subtle. So jhana means knowledge. Vijnana means complete knowledge. We're moving towards a more complete understanding, a deeper understanding of how the universe works. So we can call this the wisdom body. Finally, we move on to the anandamaya kosha, the bliss body. Sometimes Brahman is identified with Ananda, Brahman is Ananda, and sometimes Brahman is thought to be beyond the koshas altogether. So we could place Brahman here at the Anandamaya kosha, or we could say, no, the Brahman is beyond the koshas altogether. Now, this is by no means a complete introduction to the Upanishads. What I really want to encourage everyone to do is to go and find a translation of the Upanishads and read it for yourself, and read in a sort of slow contemplative way. Just read a chapter and then set it aside and sort of reflect on it. And that's going to be far more powerful than anything I can do in this video. So there's many very good English translations available. Just go and get one, and don't be intimidated, and sit down and spend some time with it. That's it for now for the Upanishads.